The massive repair station floated in the darkness of space, orbiting the industrial planet Krell 9. Inside Bay 47, Taeyong Kim carefully wrapped his tools in soft cloth and placed them into their cases. His weathered hands moved with the ease of someone who had done this work for decades. Each tool was like an old friend: the resonance detector he had used to fix the colony transport, the calibration sensor that had saved the Meridian Station, the micro-wrench that still worked perfectly after 30 years. He was 67 years old and had spent 45 years fixing starships that nobody else could repair. Today was his last day. HFY War, his supervisor from the Vrexian species, stood near the doorway watching him. The alien had 4 large compound eyes that reflected the bright workshop lights. "Your final payment has been transferred to your account, human," HFY War said through his translation device. "The company appreciates your many years of service." Taeyong did not stop packing. 45 years, he said quietly. "I fixed every ship you asked me to fix. Every impossible problem you gave me." "Yes, your work was acceptable," the supervisor replied in a flat, emotionless voice. "But humans age too quickly. You are now 67 years old. Your body breaks down fast. The younger workers from other species are faster and cost less money. This is simply good business." Taeyong closed the last tool case with a soft click. Around him in the large workshop, other mechanics continued working. A young Keltharian engineer named Heian was adjusting a power system. 2 Vrexian workers were checking a hyperdrive. A Xanther specialist studied glowing holographic blueprints. None of them looked at Taeyong. To them, he had already become invisible, already gone. He picked up his heavy tool cases. "Being fast is not the same as being wise," he said. HFY War's translator made a sound like a laugh. "The market does not care about wisdom. Your shuttle leaves for human space in 2 hours. Security will take you to the departure lounge." A young security guard, barely old enough to have finished training, walked Taeyong through the station's long corridors. They passed a hall of repairs, where large holographic displays showed the station's greatest achievements. Taeyong saw his own face in 3 different displays. There he was, younger with black hair instead of gray, standing beside the ships he had saved. The Meridian Station rescue, when everyone said the station would explode. The colony ship with a cascade failure that killed power to life support. The diplomatic vessel that 5 other mechanics had given up on. Those had been good days. Days when people needed him. The transit lounge was almost empty. Taeyong sat down near the large viewing window and stared out at the stars. His shuttle would arrive soon. Then 2 days of travel back to human territory, to some small colony world where he would probably spend his final years fixing farm equipment. No more starships. No more impossible problems. No more purpose. He pulled out his small data pad and scrolled through messages. Other humans who had been fired wrote to him. Retired. They called in their messages, but everyone knew the truth. They were not retired. They were thrown away. The stars outside blazed cold and distant. Then suddenly, alarms began screaming throughout the station. Red emergency lights flooded every room. Every screen switched to show the same emergency broadcast. The image showed a massive starship, beautiful and elegant, drifting helplessly in space. Warning lights flashed across its hull. "Emergency alert," a voice announced through every speaker. "The Imperial flagship Eternal Radiance has suffered catastrophic systems failure. Propulsion is offline. Navigation has failed. Life support is failing. Emperor Daejin and 3,000 people are aboard. Repeat, this is a priority emergency." Taeyong stood up and moved closer to the screen. His eyes narrowed as he studied the diagnostic data, scrolling past. The Eternal Radiance was famous, a masterpiece of engineering that combined technology from 17 different alien species into one perfect ship. He had read about it, studied its systems, wished he could see it in person. Now it was dying. Estimate 48 hours until complete life support failure. The broadcast continued. All qualified engineers report immediately for rescue operations. People began running through the station. Taeyong watched as the best engineers from every species gathered their equipment and rushed to the emergency shuttles. He saw Krell organizing teams, pointing and giving orders. The news feeds showed the rescue effort beginning. Engineers in spacesuits floated to the massive ship, running tests, attempting repairs. But the confused voices on the communications channels told Taeyong everything. They had no idea what was wrong. He sat back down and studied the failure patterns on his datapad. The symptoms looked familiar, very familiar. He had seen something similar 20 years ago, a resonance cascade between systems that were never meant to work together. The crack would be tiny, invisible to normal scans, but it would spread like poison through every connected system. 6 hours passed. The best engineers in the sector were failing. On the screens, a Vrexian specialist shouted in frustration. Nothing makes sense. Each system works alone, but together they destroy each other. Taeyong heard the final boarding call for his shuttle, the transport that would take him away from this place forever. He looked at his boarding pass, then back at the screen showing the dying ship. He stood up and walked to the security desk. "I need to speak with the rescue coordinator," he said calmly. "I know what is wrong with that ship." The young Keltharian security officer looked at Taeyong with doubt in her large eyes. "Sir, the best engineers in the entire sector are already working on the Imperial ship. They have specialists from every major species. What could you possibly know that they do not?" Taeyong set down his tool cases and pointed at the diagnostic data, scrolling across the security desk screen. They are looking at each system separately. The Vrexian hyperdrive team checks their equipment. The Keltharian power specialists check theirs. The Xanther navigation experts check their systems. But nobody is looking at how these systems interact with each other when they age. The security officer still looked uncertain. "I cannot just send a retired mechanic to the Emperor's ship during an emergency, then call someone who can make that decision." Taeyong said firmly, "Every minute we waste, 3,000 people get closer to death." The officer made a communication call. Within minutes, a holographic image appeared above the desk. It showed a Xanther official with deep blue skin and 3 eyes that burned with desperation. "I am Coordinator Jaiwan. You claim you can save the Emperor?" "I have seen this exact failure pattern before," Taeyong explained. 20 years ago on a colony ship called the Morning Star. Everyone said it was impossible to fix. The ship was drifting, systems cascading into failure one after another, just like the Eternal Radiance now. "And you fixed it?" the coordinator asked. "The ship is still flying today. I can send you the repair records." Taeyong pulled up the old files on his datapad. The problem is a microfracture in the coupling junction between the Vrexian hyperdrive system and the Keltharian power distributor. The crack is too small for standard scanners to detect, but it creates a harmonic frequency that spreads through every connected system like a disease. Coordinator Jaiwan studied the records quickly. The Eternal Radiance is built with integrated systems from 17 species. Are you saying one tiny crack is destroying everything? Yes, the ship is 34 years old. This type of fracture only appears in vessels over 30 years of age. The metal fatigues in ways that modern diagnostic equipment cannot see. Taeyong watched the screen showing frustrated engineers aboard the Imperial ship. Your specialists are excellent at their jobs, but they only know new systems. They have never worked with aging equipment. The coordinator was quiet for a moment, then made his decision. Emergency shuttle launching in 8 minutes. Be on it. If you are wrong, human, if you waste our time while the Emperor dies, you'll face consequences. I understand, Taeyong said simply. He grabbed his tool cases and followed the security officer at a run. The shuttle ride to the Eternal Radiance took 20 minutes. Taeyong used the time to study every schematic of the ship he could access. The vessel was magnificent, a work of art combining technologies that should never work together but somehow did. At least, they had worked for 34 years. Now the invisible stresses of time were tearing everything apart. The shuttle docked with a heavy clang. The airlock opened into chaos. Engineers shouted in a dozen different languages. Sparks fell from damaged ceiling panels. The ship's lights flickered as power systems struggled. A deep groaning sound echoed through the metal walls, like the vessel itself was in pain. Krell, Taeyang's former supervisor, stood near the airlock entrance arguing with 3 other engineers. When he saw Taeyong emerge, his 4 eyes widened in surprise. The old human? This is who they send to save us. This is who will save you, Taeyong corrected. He pushed past the supervisor. Where's the main coupling junction between Deck 7 and 8? A young Keltharian engineer stepped forward. It was Heian, the same one who had been working in the bay when Taeyong was packing his tools. I know where it is, but we already scanned that entire area 3 times. All readings show normal. Your scanners are looking for the wrong thing, Taeyong said. Show me anyway. Heian led him through narrow maintenance corridors, then into cramped access shafts barely wide enough for 1 person. The younger engineers had clearly avoided these difficult spaces. Taeyang's knees protested as he crawled, but his hands remained steady. This was the kind of work he had done his entire life. Getting into the places others would not go, looking at problems others would not see. At the coupling junction, systems from 3 different species merged together in a complex arrangement of conduits and energy channels. To the eye, everything looked perfect. The metal gleamed. The connection seemed solid, but Taeyong pulled out his old resonance detector, a tool he had built himself 3 decades ago. Modern engineers had laughed at it, called it primitive, but it had never failed him. He pressed the detector against the coupling and closed his eyes. The tool translated vibrations into sensations he could feel through his hands. There, a wrongness in the metal, a flaw singing at a frequency that should not exist. Here, he said, pointing to a scene that looked flawless. Microfracture, 0.3 millimeters deep. It is creating a harmonic frequency that cascades through every connected system on this ship. Heian ran her modern scanner over the same spot. The device beeped and showed green lights. My scanner says everything is fine. Your scanner measures what exists. My tool measures what is wrong. Taeyong showed her the readings on his old detector. This fracture has been growing for years, slowly, invisibly. 3 days ago it reached critical size. Now it is destroying the ship. Other engineers gathered around them. A Vrection specialist examined Taeyang's readings with skepticism. How could you possibly know to look for the specific problem? Taeyong stood slowly, his back aching from the cramped position. Because humans do not live as long as most of you. We understand that everything ages. Everything breaks down. We spend our lives learning how things fail. He looked at each of the young engineers. You are all experts at building new systems and maintaining them, but I am an expert at keeping old things alive. The lead engineer appeared, pushing through the crowd of frustrated specialists. His name was Miho, a tall Xanther with 3 bright eyes and skin that shifted colors with his emotions. Right now, those colors showed deep worry mixed with fading hope. You are the human who claims he can fix this ship? I can fix it, Taeyong said. But not if everyone keeps talking and asking questions. I need silence, and I need authority to work without interference. Miho's skin flickered with doubt. The calculations showed this repair would take 127 steps. Even with our best team, the success probability is only 12%. How can one old human do better? Because I will not use 127 steps, Taeyong replied calmly. I will use 89 steps. And my success rate will be much higher because I have done this repair before. He opened one of his tool cases and began pulling out equipment. Some of the tools looked ancient compared to the sleek modern devices the other engineers carried. A Vrection engineer laughed. Those tools are museum pieces. How can you fix an advanced Imperial flagship with such primitive equipment? Taeyong did not look up from his preparations. These tools have saved more ships than you have ever touched. Age is not the same as obsolete. He pulled out a fabrication unit. Small and battered, but still functional. I need to create a custom part. It will take 4 hours. While I work, everyone else needs to stop trying to fix things. Every repair attempt makes the cascade worse. Miho made the decision quickly. Everyone stop all repair work immediately. Give the human what he needs. Grumbling and whispered doubts filled the corridor, but the engineers obeyed. They watched as Taeyong set up his equipment in the cramped access shaft. Heian stayed close, observing everything he did. Why are you using the alloy combination? she asked as he programmed the fabricator. The standard replacement part uses pure titanium-7. Standard parts are designed for new systems, Taeyong explained. They are rigid and strong, but they do not flex. In an aging system, everything has shifted slightly from its original position. A rigid part will crack under that stress. This alloy I am making will bend without breaking. It will adapt to the ship instead of forcing the ship to adapt to it. He worked steadily while around him the ship continued its slow death. Every hour, more systems failed. The lights dimmed further. The temperature dropped as climate control struggled. But Taeyang's hands never rushed, never fumbled. Each movement was precise and deliberate. A deep voice spoke from behind the crowd of watching engineers. I would like to see the human work. Everyone immediately moved aside. Emperor Daejin himself stood in the corridor, still wearing his ceremonial robes, even though his ship was dying around him. He was elderly for his species, his skin showing the silver patterns of great age. Continue, he said to Taeyong. Pretend I am not here. Hard to pretend the Emperor is not standing 3 meters away, Taeyong said without looking up from his work. But I will try. A small smile crossed the Emperor's face. He moved closer, watching the human's hand shape the custom part with precision that seemed impossible for such old fingers. You are not afraid of me? I am too busy to be afraid, Taeyong replied. Fear makes mistakes. Mistakes kill people. Right now, my job is to keep you and 3,000 others alive. Everything else is unimportant. How old are you, human? 67 standard years. I am 143, the Emperor said. By Xanther standards, I am considered old, but I noticed something interesting. You understand this ship's aging in ways my younger engineers do not. Why is that? Taeyong paused to check a measurement before answering. Humans live shorter lives than most species. We are born, we age quickly, and we die. This makes us very aware of time. We see things break down. We watch systems fail. We understand entropy in ways that longer-lived species often do not. He resumed his work. To your young engineers, this ship seems permanent. To me, everything is temporary. So I learned long ago how to make temporary things last as long as possible. The Emperor nodded slowly. Wisdom born from mortality. How interesting. The custom part finally finished fabricating. Taeyong held it up to the light, examining every surface with his experienced eyes. Perfect, he said. Now comes the dangerous part. Miho stepped forward. What do you need? Everyone except Heian needs to leave this section. If something goes wrong during installation, the energy discharge could kill anyone nearby. No point having more deaths than necessary. I'm staying, the Emperor said firmly. No, you are leaving, Taeyong replied. If I fail, your people need their Emperor alive to lead them. If I succeed, you can thank me later. Now go. For a moment, the Emperor looked ready to argue. Then he laughed, a sound like crystal bells. I like this human. He talks to an Emperor like he is an apprentice engineer. He turned to leave, but paused. Do not die, human. I wish to thank you personally. The corridor emptied except for Taeyong and Heian. The young Keltharian engineer looked nervous. Why did you ask me to stay? Because you need to learn this, Taeyong said. And because my hands shake sometimes. Old age. I might need your steadier hands to help. She swallowed hard. What happens if we fail? We breach containment and die instantly in an energy explosion. But we will not fail. He smiled at her. Ready to do the impossible? Heian took a deep breath and nodded. Teach me. Taeyong began explaining each step of the repair. The damaged coupling had to be disconnected while energy still flowed through it, like performing surgery on a beating heart. One wrong move would cascade into catastrophic failure. But rushing would guarantee mistakes. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast, he told her. This is the most important lesson I can teach you. Speed looks impressive, but precision saves lives. Silence, Miho commanded sharply. The Vrexian engineer stepped back, properly scolded. But Taeyong could feel the tension in the air. Everyone was watching, judging every slow movement of his weathered hands. Rushing is how people die, Taeyong said calmly, not looking up from his work. I have 16 hours. The repair takes 12 hours if done correctly. I have time. He continued his methodical process, using tools and techniques from multiple species. A welding approach from human metallurgy. An energy stabilization method from Vrection theory. A spatial calculation borrowed from Keltharian mechanics. Heian watched every movement with intense focus. Why did you route the power through that secondary line? The primary conduit is faster. The primary conduit is newer and stronger, yes, Taeyong agreed, but it is also inflexible. If I use it during this repair and something shifts, the conduit will crack. The secondary line is older, made from a different alloy that can handle unexpected stress. Older is sometimes better. Emperor Daijin had returned, unable to stay away. He stood at a safe distance with Miho, observing the human work. He moves like he is painting a masterpiece, the Emperor said quietly. Like time has no meaning. Time has great meaning, Taeyong replied, his sharp ears catching the comment. But panic treats time as an enemy. I treat time as a tool. There is a difference. 2 hours passed. Taeyong disconnected the damage, coupling piece by piece, carefully containing the energy that wanted to explode outward. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cold air. His back ached from the awkward position. His hands trembled slightly from the physical strain. Suddenly, a warning alarm shrieked. A secondary system was failing, coolant pressure dropping rapidly. The younger engineers tensed, ready to rush forward and help. But Taeyong simply paused, thought for 3 seconds, then reached into a different access panel. What are you doing? A Xanther engineer called out. The coolant system is failing. Yes, I heard the alarm, Taeyong said. He pulled out a cable that nobody had even known was there. This is a backup coolant line. The original designers put it here 30 years ago and then forgot about it when they upgraded systems. He connected the cable to a different port. The alarm stopped. Pressure stabilized. Old ships always have forgotten backup systems. You just have to know where to look. Heian stared at the cable connection. That is not in any of the current schematics. No, it was removed from the schematics 15 years ago during a documentation update. Someone decided it was obsolete. Taeyong smiled slightly. But the physical line was never removed because it would have required tearing apart 3 bulkheads. So it stayed, forgotten and invisible, unless you're old enough to remember when it was installed. For more hours passed. The repair progressed step by careful step. Taeyang's breathing grew labored. His age was showing, the physical strain taking its toll. But his hands remained precise, his mind sharp and clear. Finally, the critical moment arrived. The new custom part had to be connected while active energy flowed through both systems simultaneously. It was like catching lightning with bare hands. The connection had to be perfect, the timing exact, the pressure precisely calibrated. Taeyong positioned the part, his hands hovering over the connection points. Then his right hand trembled, a visible shake that made several watching engineers gasp. Your hands, Heian whispered with concern. Taeyong lowered his arms and flexed his fingers, trying to force strength back into them. Old age. The body fails when you need it most. He looked at Heian. This is where I need your help. My experience and your steady hands. Together. She moved beside him immediately. Tell me what to do. Place your hands here and here, he instructed, guiding her fingers to the correct positions. Do you feel that vibration? That is the energy frequency. When you connect these parts, you must match that exact frequency. Too fast, and you create a surge. Too slow, and you create a gap. It must be perfect. Heian closed her eyes, feeling the vibration through her fingertips the way Taeyong had taught her. I feel it. Good. Now I will count down from 3. On 0, you connect with smooth, continuous pressure. Not fast, not slow. Smooth. Taeyong kept his own hand steady on the stabilizing points. 3, 2, 1, 0. Heian moved with fluid grace, connecting the custom part with the exact pressure and timing required. For one terrible moment, nothing happened. The ship seemed to hold its breath. Then a deep hum resonated through the metal. It was not the groan of dying systems, but the sound harmony of parts finding their proper rhythm together. Lights brightened throughout the corridor. The groaning stopped. Display panels flickered and then showed green status indicators spreading like wildfire through system after system. Propulsion restored. A technician shouted from a monitoring station. Navigation coming online. Life support stabilizing and strengthening. Throughout the eternal radiance, 3,000 people felt the difference. The air grew warmer. The lights grew steady. The terrible sense of a dying ship faded away, replaced by the solid feeling of a vessel made whole again. Taeyong sat down heavily on the corridor floor, exhausted beyond measure. Around him, engineers erupted in cheers and disbelief. They had witnessed the impossible. A single old human with ancient tools had saved the Emperor's flagship when the sector's best specialist had failed. Heian looked at her hands in wonder. "We did it." "You did it," Taeyong corrected gently. "I just showed you how." Emperor Daejin approached and did something unprecedented. He knelt down beside the exhausted human mechanic, ignoring the gasps from his staff. "You saved my life. You saved 3,000 lives. Name your reward." "Human. Anything within my power to grant." Taeyong was quiet for a long moment, catching his breath. Finally he spoke. "I want my job back, and I want you to end the practice of forcing out experienced workers just because they're old. Experience should be valued, not discarded." The Emperor smiled at Taeyong's simple answer. Then his expression grew more serious. "You could have let us fail. You could have boarded your shuttle and returned to human space while my ship died. Many people would have taken that revenge after being treated as you were treated." "Revenge does not fix starships," Taeyong replied. "And innocent people would have died for sins they did not commit. That is not justice. That is just more cruelty added to cruelty." Emperor Daejin nodded slowly. "My empire has made a terrible mistake. We chase innovation constantly. We worship speed and efficiency. We want everything new, everything modern, everything fast." He gestured toward the stars outside the viewing window. "But we forgot something important. Nothing lasts forever without care, without maintenance, without someone who understands how things age and break and need preservation. Most species do not think about aging the way humans do," Taeyong said. "Your people live much longer than mine. A ship that is 30 years old seems young to you, but to me, 30 years is half my lifetime. I understand intimately how time changes things, how stress accumulates, how small problems become catastrophic failures." The Emperor was quiet for a moment, thinking. "You asked only for your job back and for an end to age discrimination. Those are small requests for saving 3,000 lives, including mine." "Those are not small requests," Taeyong said. "Those requests could change how your entire empire treats its experienced workers. That would save far more than 3,000 lives over time." "You are correct," the Emperor agreed, "and I will grant both immediately. But I want to do more. I am appointing you as Chief Engineering Consultant to the entire Imperial Fleet. You will have full authority over maintenance protocols and training standards." Taeyong looked surprised. "Your Majesty, I am just a mechanic. You are the mechanic who saved my flagship. You are the teacher who showed young Heian how to do the impossible in a few hours. You are the expert we desperately need." The Emperor's three eyes focused intently on the human. "I want you to create a new training program. Teach young engineers what you know about aging systems, about patience, about how to preserve and maintain, instead of just building new things." "That would take years," Taeyong said. "Then you will have years," the Emperor replied, "and resources, and authority, and students eager to learn what you can teach." Taeyong thought about his tool cases, already packed for his journey back to human space. He thought about the quiet colony world where he would have spent his final years fixing farm equipment. Then he thought about Heian's face when she successfully made the repair, the wonder in her eyes at discovering she could do something she had thought impossible. "I accept," he said. 6 months later, Taeyong stood in a large workshop aboard the new Imperial training station. The facility had been built specifically for his program, equipped with ships of various ages and systems from dozens of species. Around him, engineers of many different species and age groups worked together on training exercises. Heian taught a class at the far end of the workshop. She had become his senior assistant, her natural talent combined with his knowledge, making her an exceptional instructor. She was showing a group of young engineers how to use resonance detection, explaining that sometimes the old tools work better than the new ones. Krell was there too, no longer a supervisor but a student himself. The Vrexian had been reassigned to a position where he could learn humility. At first, he had resented it bitterly, but slowly, grudgingly, he had begun to understand what he had been missing. Now he actually listened when others spoke, actually considered that he might not know everything. An elderly Xantha mechanic worked beside a young human engineer, the two of them solving a cascade failure problem together. A middle-aged Keltharian instructor demonstrated proper maintenance technique to three eager apprentices from species Taeyong had never even met before. This was what he had built, not just a training program, but a philosophy, experience paired with youth, patience combined with innovation, the wisdom of age teaching the energy of youth, and the fresh perspectives of the young challenging the old assumptions of experience. A priority message appeared on Taeyong's communication console. He read it and smiled. Another impossible repair was needed. A civilian transport ship had developed a malfunction that had stumped every engineer who examined it. They were requesting help from the legendary human mechanic and his team. Everyone, Taeyong called out, his voice carrying across the busy workshop. We have a new assignment. Real-world problem, lives at stake. Time to show what we have learned. The workshop came alive with activity. Students gathered their tools, checked their equipment, reviewed the preliminary data. Heian joined Taeyong at his workstation, reading the details of the malfunction. This looks complicated, she said. Everything looks complicated until you understand it, Taeyong replied. He picked up his ancient toolbox, the same battered case he had carried for 45 years. The tools inside were old but perfectly maintained, each one ready to do the impossible one more time. Heian grabbed her own toolkit, a mix of modern equipment and some older tools she had built following Taeyong's designs. What should we do first? First, we do not rush, Taeyong said. Second, we do not panic. Third, we do not give up. The impossible just takes a little longer than the possible. They walked toward the shuttle bay together, followed by a team of engineers young and old, experienced in learning, all of them ready to prove that age was not obsolescence. Age was wisdom. Age was experience. Age was understanding how to make things last in a universe where everything eventually breaks down. As they boarded the shuttle, Taeyong looked back at the training station, at the workshop full of students who would carry forward what he had taught them. This was his real legacy. Not the ships he had saved, but the people he had taught to save ships. Ready? Heian asked. Taeyong smiled. Let us show them what too old can do. The shuttle launched toward the stars, carrying a team that understood something the galaxy had forgotten. In a universe obsessed with the new, someone had to remember how to preserve the old. Someone had to understand that everything ages, everything breaks, and everything needs care to survive. And sometimes the oldest hands were the ones best suited to keep things alive. The end.